Welcome back to the Explicit Measures Podcast with Tommy and Mike. We are here despite technical issues. Starting a little late this morning. Wow, that was rough.
We made it. I don't care.
This is what happens when you take 2 weeks off and you do other things and like stuff stops working. Passwords won't let you in.
Stuff for you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just was not happy. It was not happy. But we're here. We made it.
Oh my gosh, it's good to see your face and hear your voice, even though I could have done this every week. But still, we're live.
Tommy would rather do this every day if he could, honestly.
Dude, it brightens my day.
All right, so I don't know if we have any.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any news items. This whole episode might be just news, I guess. I think is where we're going to land on this one. So today's topic is going to be all about the Fabric Conference Las Vegas rundown. We're going to go through the whole conference, talk about things that were announced, features that were out on the Microsoft blog. There's a ton of new announcements, things that are going, I think, a lot of public preview right now that are coming out, and kind of see where the excitement of things are. Let's quickly catch up here. Tommy, we were gone for 2 weeks. How did things go? What did you keep yourself busy on for 2 weeks while you didn't have a podcast to talk about?
You know, it was trying to see how much I can run on an F2, and apparently it's not that much. So I was doing some experiments because I know a lot of people are like, can we just do the F2? I'm like, all right, well, how much would that actually, in a sense, pull if from throttling? So, dude, I had some major throttling issues with Fabric because I'm like, all right, I'm going to try.
So explain more. Like, what were you doing? Like, what kind of things were you running?
So it was all about integration, baby. It was all right. I'm going to take data, put in a lake house, push it Power BI. Going to do a bunch of transformations Power BI. I'm going to push that back into the lake house. Kind of some stress testing there, like basically that one lake integration side of things. I have a lot of notebooks. I want to test a lot of things out. I want to test my notebook, my semantic models out with the Semantic Link Labs. And I want to work in Python as much as I can. And because it's still a Power BI tool, we're going to do a lot with data flows. So I was running a lot of data flows, and I think that's what the issue was. So
I was wondering what's tipping over here, and I was hoping you were going to say Data Flows Gen 2 because that's what it seems to eat a lot of CUs more than the other tools that are out there.
Mike, not only was it so bad, it was so bad that I couldn't even view my capacity monitoring app
because that was on. It was on the capacity.
Yeah, so it was like, dude. So
yeah, it was totally angry. How did you resolve it? You just kind of waited it out after you ran out of space?
You have to wait it out. And then you just got to go through whenever you get your access to the capacity app, because that seems to spin up everything again. But it was just like, okay, data flows, as much as I love them, and it really is. I'm not going to say it's a cool feature because it really is, especially pushing data.
I 100% agree with you there.
But you know what I was starting to do? I was starting to take a lot of those things in data flows.
Push them to notebooks.
I was going.
Yes,
and I'm like, all right, Copilot, let's see what we can do. So, but seriously, like I have a Raspberry Pi that has like Jupyter Hub, so it has like its own instance there. And I
Jupyter Hub, just like a notebook experience that you can run on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, exactly. So that way you're not eating up your computer, and when there's all those environments. So
I've never seen that before. So you have a separate monitor. The Raspberry Pi is on that.
I go to the browser; it's like a local network.
It
spins up. I just go to my local network at this port, and I can connect to that in VS Code too. But it's not on my PC. Anyways, so I basically gave VS Cursor. Sorry, because it's really there's no context anymore. But I gave him one of these tools, Power Query. Gave him the documentation to Power Query and said, "Here's what I'm trying to do."
Oh, interesting. So basically, you use a large language model using Cursor, basically, and said, here's the M documentation, here's the M code, and said, rewrite this in Python, basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly.
How spot on was it? Did it do pretty good?
There were a few edits, but I wanted to test it out because of PySpark and also you can just run Python. I said, imagine I'm going to run one notebook using PySpark because a new Microsoft Fabric, it was doing MS Spark utilities. It was doing SemPy Labs on its own. Like, assume I'm running the Python instance. You can't use this. You can't use that.
Yep.
You do. I'm not kidding. It was frighteningly easy. Because yeah, I could go into the actual thing I was doing in Power Query. It was this like index lookup. I was basically trying to get like, a, it was a lot of looping within, a lot of list generate, and Copilot did it in 15, 25 seconds.
Wow.
It doesn't take anything to load. So yeah.
You open up an interesting conundrum by starting this way, Tommy. So you start off, so will Microsoft allow a Copilot, their Copilot? Would you even ask, like, would they even allow you to go to a data flow that's costing you a lot of CUs, run a Copilot that's kind of expensive to run inside Fabric right now, and say, turn this M code, turn this data flow pipeline into a Python script. And then you can literally just migrate yourself off of all the old Power Query into notebooks experiences.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, absolutely.
That's almost like, it's almost like the tool itself can obsolesce itself. Right?
It's gonna.
It's a little bit of an Inception moment here. Like you can use its own tool to make it more efficient.
I mean, there's still all the things like, well, why did it do that? It's like, well, no, I don't want it exactly like that. And all the things you can do in Power Query. But honestly, yeah, man, especially for what it was doing to Mike, it is just me. Like I was trying to stress test it, but that shouldn't happen.
So give me like a, just a rough, looking at your capacity app, right? So you're looking at capacity app, you've used a bunch of things, you're doing a bunch of data flows, some notebooks, and then reading and writing from Lake. That's basically what you're doing to overload it, correct?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. When you were looking at the capacity metrics app, if you looked at the ratio of the things you were doing in notebooks versus the data flow, what was the percentage? Like when it tipped over and it had an issue and it wasn't working, was it like 90% of your consumption was from like data flows, or did you have like 30-70%? Like what was the ratio of what you were seeing when it was working, or when like before it tipped over? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
You know what? Do you want the honest opinion?
Yeah.
I'll keep you updated because I still haven't gotten to it. It's been, or in terms of like, it's just been bugging out. So I'm trying to load that. So, but honestly, it wasn't until I started running these notebooks, and one to load the data, one to push it to a lake house, and it just, So it's a weird thing that they have that they focus so much on data flows, and it is such a nice tool where it's going to, like, almost like you almost want them to take away some of the features in it because you're asking for it, kind of thing.
One thing I just learned was, inside Spark, you have the ability to tune a little bit of what Spark is doing. So the Microsoft team, and there's a couple of YouTube videos that we've done around optimizing your cluster for like reading and writing. And there's actually some Spark settings you can adjust. So for example, if you're reading and writing data from the Lakehouse, one of the more expensive operations, or not more expensive, a more expensive operation than just purely writing the data to and from the Lakehouse is using the V order sorting. So if you're getting data from somewhere and you're using the Spark engine, you can say, hey, when you're writing this Delta table to the Lakehouse, don't use the V order sorting, just standard stuff. So there's actually a number of settings you can set inside the notebook to make the reading and writing more efficient. So if your Delta table or your table that you're making in the Lakehouse is not going to be directly accessed from Power BI, there's really not a lot of use case for you to optimize the V order of the bronze and silver tables, because maybe occasionally you'll read them from Power BI desktop, but the gold tables for sure, because that's where you will consume data from the semantic model. Like the semantic model will connect to that and load there. So there's actually even techniques in there. And to your point, Tommy, I don't see any controls in data flows to just say, well, we don't really care where the data goes.
You're right.
Just put it there and don't worry about V order. Just land the data somewhere. It's the assumption is like they're always trying to prepare the data directly for Power BI. One of the patterns that I have found that has worked and is very efficient from a CU consumption standpoint is the pipelines are highly efficient. Like when you run a pipeline, compared to everything else, right? If you do a copy job from a pipeline, it almost uses no CUs at all to run the pipeline with a copy activity. So often I'm trying to bring the data to bronze and do everything by bringing that initial data in, only using a pipeline. And then I'll do, yeah. Well, think of it, right? The pipeline is a very optimized .NET backend thing, right? It doesn't take a lot of compute. So if the pipeline can run at a very low CU, again, we're talking about CU consumption.
Yeah.
All you need to do in the bronze layer is just get the data there. Get the flat files, get the JSONs, get the whatever the thing is there to the bronze layer, and then you pick up the notebooks and say, okay, now that we have the files, the delta tables, or whatever you want at the bronze layer, then you pick it up and you transform it with notebooks, and then that's what moves the data from bronze to silver, and then ultimately silver to gold. And you have, again, my point here is you have more control about tuning the amount of how you want that Spark notebook to run. Again, this is probably a bit more of a pro user perspective on things, because you probably don't optimize step one. You just get it working in step one, and then you come back and optimize in step two.
And then you figure out the rest. Yeah.
And you figure out, oh, this was kind of inefficient. I want to adjust this and make it faster or whatever. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, there's a ton of this stuff on the back end with Spark that I've been seeing. You know what I've been doing a lot, though? I've been like, let's say I didn't want to do Spark. Let's say I just wanted to work on Python too. It's incredibly fast, their Python environment. I'm intrigued about the cost.
Like the pure Python notebook.
Yeah, it's just the pure Python.
It's cheaper. I mean, it's cheaper than Spark because it's only one cluster. I mean, the Spark cluster uses two machines, a driver and a worker by default. The Python notebook is just one machine. So cut the Spark compute in half and just use pure Python. It's there. It works. So like if you're looking for like automation, like if you're using small data and it doesn't require a lot, I start using just pure Python notebooks now. I really like it.
Yeah. And that honestly, I've been finding myself doing more and more of that because, and again, a lot of things I'm doing right now, at least for my internal company, don't need thousands and millions of rows, especially what it is. I really just need Python.
Yes, correct. The only thing I have a little bit of trouble here with the pure Python notebooks is you lose a little bit of the PySpark experience. And so you have to do other things in like DuckDB. But DuckDB is super fast. It's kind of weird because you're like, well, I was writing SQL. Well, DuckDB it does write SQL. It is a SQL-like engine. It's just built inside a pure Python notebook. So there's a couple nuances of like how you have to write notebooks. And I do have some Python notebooks that are currently running other places. And I'm trying to learn how to write this DuckDB SQL language so you can like make a data frame, write SQL against it to get the data out. But I think that's something that co-pilots should be easily able to translate for you. Hey, I got this Spark thing, right? Yeah. I have the Spark thing. Just go to DuckDB and say, write this equivalent SQL statement in DuckDB from PySpark. Dude,
that's exactly what I did yesterday. Yeah. So I mean, and it's crazy how a lot of these tools, especially now that we're seeing the integration with Fabric, with kind of what I've kind of been on my bucket or my Christmas list, so to speak, is the outside integration of Fabric, and like outside
integration of Fabric.
So
what
like
do you mean?
How well it's getting in VS Code now with the API kind of thing. There's a freaking command line tool now.
I see what you're saying now.
Access Fabric in other places. So again, I may have my own model, or I may have my own kind of tooling that I want to work with my data with. I love Fabric, but I may want to use Claude or Gemini to kind of go through the data because it's on my machine. It's just more seamless too.
I feel like at the Fabric conference, I had kind of this epiphany around that exact moment, Tommy. Like there was, Microsoft has their flavor of what Copilots should be, but there's a lot of other Copilots that are out there across the internet. Like, how do you quickly get those experiences? Like, maybe I want to use Cursor in a notebook. Maybe what I'm finding, I'm actually working with my engineers on software development. And one of the things that we're looking at is going, oh, it's interesting because certain AI agents do kind of a better job. And every week or month or so, there's already someone releasing like a new version of a Copilot that's doing something better than the last one. So like today Grok might be better, but in a week you might see Copilot show up and they've done a change, or OpenAI did an adjustment, or Llama just appears with their new version. They've got a Llama Scout, I think is what they were saying, that has 10 million. Oh yeah,
it would take a whole Harry Potter's in one prompt.
Yeah, you could send the whole book as a prompt into the engine. Like the stuff they're doing now is getting incredibly efficient. And this is, again, we're still on this. discovering this whole space. Like, how does it work? How do you use it? So for me, my struggle is I just don't know where to leverage it best in my business work. So I'm still looking for patterns.
Well, yeah.
Here at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's enough. We haven't touched anything yet. That's Mike. Welcome back, by the way, because you were the one who was, the man, you were the rocket man, so to speak. You were the one traveling, going to.
Oh, geez. Lots of travel.
Lots of traveling. So you were at FabCon in person.
I was. We got to make it a Fabric conference. I would say so. This year, Microsoft kind of put the MVP summit. So it's a special summit that MVPs go to. They talk to Microsoft and they have some direct time with the PMs and spend time on the Microsoft campus. Had a blast this year. It was a great event. And then right after that, literally right after the MVP summit, we traveled directly to Las Vegas and then did all the conference there for Las Vegas, which was super fun. I would say the combination of this year's MVP summit and the combination of Fabric Conference has been the best two events back to back I've ever been to. Yeah. And I think it was a little bit more self-imposed than anything else because at the Fabric Conference, we released two major pieces of software. My company has been developing for Power BI for a number of years now, and we released our new Fabric workload. Have you played with any of the workloads, Tommy?
I think I looked last week, so I didn't see it yet. But I would use your designer. So
workloads are this ability for applications companies to show up to Power BI and develop what they want inside the Power BI Fabric ecosystem. So Power BI Tips has updated, migrated, whatever you want to call it. We were the first company to go GA, general availability, for our workload. So our workload is officially generally available. It's the theme generator, but now built directly into Fabric. So it's all the goodness and richness you would do for theme editing before. You have templating, you have page building, you can have AI that helps you build visuals on top of pages. But in addition to that, you can now preview your designs against an existing report. And so we're actively working on additional features to make it even easier for you to get your designed template published into a workspace and connected to a semantic model. So very exciting things coming there. So that's our workload. So think theme generator or theme and template generator moved to Power BI. So that was one very exciting. The other release that we had was another product called Entelexos. So Entelexos is Intel external. And so now you can go buy Entelexos off of the Azure Marketplace. There's a lot of work to get through that. We did a lot of rebuilding. We did a huge amount of updating the back end to just really get things polished and ready to go for Fabric Conference. So I think this is why the event was so exciting to me, because it was like this culmination of meeting my friends, seeing other MVPs, talking to the product team, and then having a really excitement of news of two substantial pieces of software that we've been developing for years at this point, both of them actually. And everything's kind of landing and launching at the same time. So mad kudos to the Carlos Solutions team. You guys did an amazing job, worked really hard at it. Thank you all for your feedback and the hard work. But yeah, I think that was part of the reason why it made the event so exciting for me, because I had real things to deliver and I was showing them to Microsoft and other people. And they're like, wow, this is really helpful. This could be really useful. I hope so, because that's what I've been working on.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, congratulations on that, man. Dude, that's awesome. I don't see Intellecto out there yet. So at least in my
what do you mean? It's not a workload.
Oh, it's not a workload. I thought this was also a workload too.
Yeah. You just go to Entelexos.com. So gotcha. And that's where you can get the information. You can actually buy it off of the Azure Marketplace. So it's a standalone software product that aids you with Power BI embedded solutions. So Entelexos is embedding your Power BI reports for either internal or external users. If you're using the Fabric SKU, if you're just using an A SKU, you can only embed for external users. But the idea here is, here's an accelerator. We've taken years of development to build something like this, and we've been refining the idea and making it easier to use. And so here we are landing the software, and now everyone can start embedding in hours. You could start embedding a whole entire solution, users, signups, authorization, in hours versus having to spend months or a long time. Microsoft was talking on this when they said most development projects were going anywhere between 9 to 12 months to build a Power BI embedded solution. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of figuring things out. So you can go from 9 to 12 months of development time down to an hour
An
That's
hour.
that's it. That's a huge win. That's a very
Yeah,
fast project to get done. So, anyways, that's kind of where the embedded accelerators are coming out as well.
that's awesome. Well, I did Aaron mention you as well during the keynote?
I don't think I was noted because they didn't really talk about the Power Designer, but I had a number of sessions that were mentioning my workload and showing it and demonstrating it. So it was very exciting to see. I was a little miffed at one of the sessions. I had done all this work to get to GA, and in one of the sessions, they were showing all these new tools. Like, hey, look, these are all the workloads. These are the ones that are coming out, and they showed my slides for my company. They showed a slide of the workload, but I had prepared like a 1-minute video to put in the slide so we could show it. And they cut my video. So the other company that went GA, they showed their video and they didn't show mine. I was like, hey, guys, I spent like
Dude, yeah.
real money and dollars and time to develop this to get to GA, and yet you cut my video. I was kind of miffed about that. So, it is what it is. There's a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of workloads that are out there, but it feels like right now the product team is giving a lot of the data engineering workloads a lot more love than Power BI workloads. But if I think about it, the Power BI workloads that are going to be coming out are actually going to be the ones that are more impactful, because that's the larger audience. Microsoft said on their last earnings call, there's 30 million monthly active users in Power BI. So
It's still crazy.
you should highlight those workloads and make sure they get their runtime for people to understand what the solution is. So it is what it is. The team's making decisions and cutting where they need to cut, but I kind of felt a little bit gypped because they weren't able to run my video that I worked hard on to get in there. And I'm like, I'll change the video. You want a different video? I'll make it different.
I'm
So
good at this. So
hopefully they'll figure it out. We'll see. Anyways, you just kind of move on. You take the punch and you just keep doing your thing. So. Anyways, all that being said, the links, if you want to learn more about Entelexos or you want to learn more about Power Designer, they are both down below in the chat window. I put them out on YouTube, and I'll also put them out here on the other social media platforms as well, just in case you want to check it out on your own, learn about it. We'd be happy for you to kind of check it out and see more about the workload things. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of news items, Tommy. Let's talk about the news. Like, okay, this is just fluff stuff. Okay. This is Fabric Conference, a ton of announcements. This is like their big event. I think Microsoft was holding back a lot of announcements. Tommy, what did you find on the blog that was impactful? And then I'll give you some of my read on what happened while I was there.
So, first off, if you were not at FabCon, I think just for the sheer fact of it's like drinking through a water hose. Just trying to go through every new thing that came up and all the features. It's amazing how much they've been working on this. But yeah, let's start with obviously where we always start with. It's the big keynote. It's like the iPhone drop. That's always Aaron's talk. So obviously we always start with security. I get it. And it's very important. It's just not, it's not everyone's favorite one. But then we talked about more AI and just that seamless integration, which was like, okay. But Mike, they're really going all Power BI was our thing, but it's now just a child of Fabric. And I thought that was one of the.
It's always kind of been that way, honestly. Like, think about okay, let me just, I agree with your comment there. Like, it's a good observation, but we were always kind of a child of the data platform anyways, right? There's data platform. There was like all this, Fabric was previously like Synapse, Azure Data Factory, SQL Database, Cosmos DB. Like, there's all these data systems, Azure Functions. These are all data movement things, but they all existed inside Azure. We just couldn't touch them. So even looking at the perspective, Tommy, there's probably way more than 30 million monthly active users in all of the data platform Azure things, right? So you're now just getting that ability to move those items over to Fabric now.
Yeah. And I think that was a big thing too about just how easy is it to just take your data and just easily push it to Fabric, which again, and it's just going to be one of those things. Like I was talking to my wife and we were with our kids and we were talking about how when we had to travel, we talked about this before. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff that we had to do and we had to learn and the processes are they're going away because of the UI, because of the seamless ability. Not saying best practices, but they're going to adapt because how we're going to work with the tool is going to adapt. We almost have so many stop gaps right now. And I think that's the biggest thing where you want to copy data somewhere. Before it was okay, maybe you bought something that was kind of expensive and you uploaded a document, but I can take all my different sources where it may not be on my machine. I don't have
Sure.
a dang coding language or really know what the heck I'm doing. And I can easily get it into a centralized place, which again, we've been able to do for the last 2 years. So it sounds much simpler or pretty simple, but it's not. And I think that was a big part too with from the data mirroring to what they were doing with the databases. It's like, oh, wow, this is even beyond to me the commoditization of data. It's almost something else. But anyways, so just that was a big focus, at least for me on the onset. So where were you at in terms of some of those major announcements?
Yeah, let's talk about some of these. So one of the ones that was, it was One Lake Security is here. So this has been like the security piece that Microsoft made an announcement. I think it was like last year, early on. They're like, hey, we're going to be building Fabric. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have this thing called One Security. Like it's this unified security thing across all the things that are Fabric. And they delayed a lot on this. They didn't get it out immediately. And people, I think, had this impression that like, well, Fabric's not secure because One Security didn't come with it. I don't think that's really the story here. I think actually the story was more along the lines of One Security was intended to be detailed security, very, in the artifacts themselves, right? So for example, think about like, hey, I'm going to make a table in the lakehouse. I want to give control permissions, or I want to give permissions down to the individual, like let's add row level security to a lakehouse table. Let's add column level security on a lakehouse table and actually set that up so that I can give Tommy very specific access to the artifact itself. I think what happened here, from my impression as an outsider looking at this one, was it got really difficult to have all the security pieces figured out through all these different compute engines. Let me do a quick comparison.
Yeah.
Databricks has two compute engines. It has a SQL engine that they run, and they have a Python engine that they run. Two. Microsoft has like over 9 of them. There's like a Rust viewer that runs the lakehouse, so you can see the tables that are there. They have like the SQL engine. They have a Python engine. They have a Python notebook engine. They have the SQL serverless engine. They have like the data warehouse engine. They have like a semantic model engine that can go read the lakehouse directly. Like they have so many other compute engines that are doing things. There's a Custo engine. And all these things are supposed to read and write directly from the lakehouse. So I think what happened here was this, I'm looking at this one, there's so much more surface area for them to secure. Mm-hmm. Each team, like this is not one big team building this stuff. There's like in every compute team has their own security challenges. Like how a Spark notebook attaches to a lakehouse is different than a semantic model. The security model has to be handled the same in both instances, but each team had to build their own security relationships or things that it would all be obeyed the same way. So it seems like a really hard problem to solve. So I'm thankful they solved it, like no issue there. But it also to me feels like, oh yeah, this is a much clearer understanding as to why this was so difficult to resolve. Does that make sense?
Dude, do you remember the white paper you made me read?
I did make you read the white paper, yes.
Yeah. So, and I think that's honestly like, it is not the most fun to talk about security, but if you don't understand it, and it has not been a very straightforward thing, to your point, something's going to happen. So
yes.
It's like good on them too for making this a little, not just kind of easier to understand, where you're like, I need to really figure out who has access to what and how does this flow through.
Sure. It's a very simple, it seems like it's implementing a very simple exchange on how to load data, right, which is good. Yes, I agree with that. So what I will say is it's not out yet. They've announced it. I think it's going out for private preview is what they maybe announced or something like that. I'm not quite sure when it's going GA or something, but I'd have to read the article a little closer. Anyways, one thing is I'm happy it's simple, and I'm happy it's there, and I'm happy it's working. So that's something that's going to be, I mean, honestly, I don't want to build more lake houses. I don't want to build more and more workspaces just to secure things, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I should be able to give detailed access to tables and rows in the lakehouse from any engine, SQL engine, data warehouse engine, semantic model, like all these things should just kind of work. And so I think this is a lot of hard work from the team. So kudos on Microsoft getting it all together. Guido's pushing hard. I guarantee you, if as a person who's doing software development for Fabric Conference, it was probably a race and rush to the end to get these last couple of features out in the last couple of months, just so they could have things to announce and get closer to get it done. So
I don't want to.
Mad kudos to the team.
Yeah. So
well, remember. So that was my one comment. The other comment here, Tommy.
I know where you're going. I know what you're going to say. I know what can I say? Or no, you say.
Hold on.
I know what you're going to say.
I'll get close to it. I'll let you. We'll play the game here. Let's play the game. So
okay.
There's another feature that I'll preempt it and I'll let you announce it, Tommy. So I won't actually say it. I promise.
Oh, I thought you were talking. Okay.
We've been ragging on the Microsoft team for a number of episodes, and we've been so vocal about this issue for weeks now that we've directly called it out, and we've been kind of miffed, and it's finally here. So, Tommy, announce the feature.
Introducing Copilot for everyone who has Fabric.
There we go.
Wow, that's harder than it was.
You saw that one coming a mile away. So I didn't know they were going to land that feature, but I was very pleasantly surprised that the Fabric Copilot experience is coming down to the F2. We've complained about it on the podcast for a number of episodes. Like it makes no sense, right? If I'm going to abuse the Copilot and run it out and use all the tokens up, and I should have the ability to do that. And also, like, you can now use a Copilot per capacity, dedicated Copilot per capacity. So that means you can spin up an F2 and just say, that is the only item I want people to use for Copilot. And then everyone in the organization uses a single Copilot. And when it runs out, it runs out. Like it says you're out of tokens. Fine. Like that's okay. But I mean, I was looking at the price comparison, Tommy. Do you pay for Cursor right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
How much is it for Cursor to run inside? Like, what's the price for Cursor? Monthly.
Right now, it can never be enough. But it's
true.
it's about $9.99.
So it's $100 a month for just one person, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're paying $100 a month for Cursor to run.
$100 a month? No, for 10. That would be for 10 people. I'm paying $9.99.
Okay, so you're paying $10. Isn't there a Copilot that was like $200 a month?
That was GPT.
Okay, so ChatGPT has a $200 a month subscription, right? That's another Copilot. Yeah. Okay. If you put a Fabric F2 capacity out, it's $250 a month. If you put it on reserve capacity pricing, like you reserve it for a year, it's $150 a month. This is right in line with like buying a Copilot from like some other thing. Now, will you get unlimited queries and will it run out of capacity? I don't know yet. I haven't tested any of it yet. But the fact that we can go all the way down to an F2 and I can turn on and Copilot will work, very pleased about this feature, right? Yeah. Let us manage the capacities. Let us have, and maybe looking back on this trail, maybe we needed the dedicated Copilot feature first before they could bring the Copilot all the way down to the F2. That makes sense to me, right? Because if you just said everyone uses Copilot, stuff will just start falling over all the place and it'd be a very poor experience. But the fact that you can have all users who are allowed to use Copilot use a dedicated Fabric SKU to just run their Copilot, that makes more sense.
Yeah. You know what I just thought, and I think the reason why Microsoft's been so hesitant on this, I know we've been ragging at them, but I think my experience the last 2 weeks without you is kind of seeing how quickly F2 can go. I think there's someone at Microsoft going, "We warned you. Don't be afraid of what you wish for," because I don't know what it does,
how much capacity. Well, we've never been able to test it down that low. So, Tommy, you and I, we don't just stand up an F64 and just start ripping Copilot and say like, okay, let's measure how much it's going to consume. So the threshold for us, we weren't even able to do testing at our levels because we want to lower F2, F4, SKU level to actually test anything. So to your point, Tommy, I think you're right. I don't think we actually know the implication of like how much consumption a Fabric capacity will use. I will say this though. I have directly been using Copilot in the web browser. So I have Copilot on Edge. And I think, right, so my understanding is if you have Copilot in Edge, if you pay for the Office Copilot, you're able to integrate that with the Edge Copilot as well. Does that make sense? Like the M365 Copilot?
Yes. No, it knows who you are, it knows your organization.
Okay. But that's because you're paying for the mic. So that's $20 a month for that Copilot. For me, the user.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I go there and I will be in a Python notebook and I will open the web browser Copilot and I'll just start talking to it. Hey, here's my function. Fix it. Hey, here's the error that I got. I had a really interesting use case like 2 weeks ago. I had an M code. It failed. I just sent, here's my error in M code. And it said, oh, you should do this, this, and this. And I said, it gave me like, it kind of interpreted the error message a bit more. And I said, okay, fine. Here's the actual M code. Can you fix it? And then in doing that, it said, oh yeah, sure. Here's the new M code that you need. And I plopped it right in and it worked just fine. So that was a not free Copilot, but I was just using a Copilot that's not integrated with the product. I didn't need to turn it on. I didn't even need to go to Fabric to use their Copilot, and it worked just fine. So, I mean, that's an area that I'm like, that makes sense to me.
Well, I think we're going to see a few things here, and this is to be honest, when I'm thinking about needing Copilot in Fabric, and I think it's kind of shifted over the last few weeks too, because I've gone away too, Mike, with my own, copy and paste code somewhere and then just kind of implement it. But
yep.
I think the bigger thing that I know this is not going to have, and this is one of the more major announcements, I think, at the keynote, at least Microsoft was really touting this, was the data agents. And this is still not to be touched by...
I don't know if I've played around with data agents enough to really have a good opinion with it. I think it has potential, Tommy.
Well, it's really changed. I mean, they're really changing what their initial idea was here.
Well, data agents...
The AI, yeah.
Go keep going, Tommy. Sorry, I didn't mean
No, I was going to say they initially, what was the AI skill? That was going to be their initial thought with that. That was the forefather, so to speak. But just kind of reading up with it's not just a branding thing where we're like, with this name will work better.
Sure.
But they're understanding too that skill alone, it needs to be able to do more things. It needs to act, without lack of a better words, like how AI agents work now, or it's not going to be used. So in very much of the thing, Mike, I have no idea if you've heard of what's kind of been the other big thing in the kind of tech world is what's called model context protocols, the
MCPs. I've been researching this.
Yes.
So I was just watching videos around. So I'm actually looking at this MCP experience. So model communication protocol is what it stands for, right? And so it's the idea is you have a large language model and you want your large language model to do actions inside some sort of software. So I've seen it do things like, apparently there's like a Figma. So there's a Figma MCP. So you can go to Figma and literally talk to Figma using natural language and say, hey, build me a square that is this by this by this and has this color on it, or build me a web page that looks like this, or build me a diagram. Mm-hmm. To me, I'm looking at it going, wow, this really changes the game. You actually don't need to know how to do something. You can just kind of roughly talk to it, and you can like it may not be perfect, but it gives you like a starting point inside an existing app. So a lot of this feels to me like it's not going to do the whole job for you. It won't do everything.
No.
But what it will do is it'll get you like 75, 85, 95% of the way there. That's interesting to me. So like that can save me. Like if I can just tell it to do something and have it create 80% of what I want, and then I just tweak the last little bit to make it perfect the way I want it. That's a time save for me. Like this is worth it for me to spend money on these tools if they can start doing something that would take me 2 hours and take it to 15 minutes.
Here's the thing though, too, where I think that AI skill initially was kind of just specialized on a single data set where listen, I think a lot of people now are kind of really expecting if there's an AI tool, it's not just going to give me an answer, right? It's actually, I feel like all
going to do things.
It's got to do something, right?
Yes, and that's what we really need.
Right. And I think the AI skill initially was, we're going to be the most knowledgeable about your model kind of thing and be able to kind of give you answers. And I think we realized like we're either not there yet. In
minimal success.
Either we haven't gone through a semantic model yet enough to really being able to do that. But really more, it's like, but there's still a lot you can do. And they're like, we're having great success with the Copilot agents. So this is a major announcement. But like I said, I'm going to say, but because this is only F64, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bit frustrating, and I have no idea why. Like, is it that intensive on
The data agents you're talking about?
Yeah, the data agents.
Yeah, I think it's honestly it's a feature that they're giving to large organizations, and they want it to hang on that feature. Again, I don't look at Fabric saying, before there was like this threshold, right? It was like all the other embedded SKUs, and then there was like a P1, and then you really start turning things on, right? So somewhere in the marketing or the finance team, they said a P1 is where we start. And now somehow that's that hangs on to like this F64 level. I'm honestly there. Like, why would you push people to move to that threshold of an F64 to get them to that price point, when in reality you could probably adopt more people, or more organizations would adopt the lower end F SKUs, and then they would realize, oh, that's expensive. I will ramp up. I will add more capacity. I will, like, if people are, to your point, Tommy, right? If data agents are able to save people an hour of time and drop it down to 10 minutes, worth the price to scale up your SKU.
100,000%.
Right? It's the value to money proposition that we're talking about here. So one thing I'm just kind of confused around data agents, I don't really understand how to easily build them inside Fabric today. It's doing something, it's integrating with AI Foundry, which is like the data studio for like AI things for Fabric, but you're paying for that separately. And how does it work inside the Power BI? I don't really understand what it's doing per se. So the story's a bit lost on me. I probably just need to read up on it a bit more. Admittedly, I'm not as clear as what's going on there. One thing I would just say I would like is, as a workload developer, as one who builds workloads, I would love to have access as a third-party developer to use a data agent in my workload that can then be used to help produce content in my app. That's something that's just not there today. Like, I can't even use it. So that's something I would like to do. And I'd like to have it charge CUs back to the capacity, so that if I find an interesting used feature, great, I'll just use this cool feature and I'll just send data back to the Microsoft team, and they'll just do their agent thing, and then the CUs will get charged back to the capacity. Then I'm none the wiser. Like, they're happy because they get more CU usage. I'm happy because my tool gets this cool AI feature in it. Like, to me, it's a win-win.
So, and I think they I don't want to touch too much more on the AI, even though that's obviously probably mentioned. I cannot
sure
many times, and how much there, and I get that, but let's give a little love to the developers too. There's some, I mean, we haven't even talked about the normal folk with what these announcements were about, right? Like, I think a lot of this about the enterprise. So, Mike, I'm just going to touch on a few briefly. That's now available. By the way, I've been refreshing my admin portal like every 3 hours, waiting for the Copilot capacity to show up.
Yeah, I don't know when it's supposed to land at some point this month, maybe. I
don't know.
End of April, I guess. I think is when they said. I'm not quite sure what the timing of that was.
But I am very excited. But so there's a few things I think that are major things that we can actually get our hands on. So a few platform things. There's a command line tool. So you want to talk about be able to talk to dude, I love me some terminal.
I know you do. You Tommy, you are 100% a pro user. This is just oozing pro user to me, all over the place here on this one. So, like, I understand. I even know that you can, in the command terminal, it said something about you can write a script and put the script and store it inside a lakehouse as a file, and then you can like CD to that, or change directory to that file location and run the script. So if you can start scripting things from the command line. Okay, I understand. It's going to be useful. On the other hand, I'm like, this is a feature for pro and admins only. I'm going to change your mind right now. Here's the only thing you have to do is you're going to go on your terminal. You're going to go type in npm install shell ask. And then the only thing you have to do for the rest of your life is when you want to do something, you write the word ask, and then what you want to do, and this LLM runs, and it will give you the command, and then you're good. Kind of thing. You're like, ask, what was that? I want to copy this, but I only want to copy the subfolder. Done. So that's the only thing I use. You want to talk about a game? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't know you could. Didn't know you could do that. But then on the other hand of this too, I'm thinking about, like, I'm gonna need this is an area where I'm gonna need the community, other people who are in like literally command line things and see, like, so there's also an Azure command line utility as well.
Yeah. It's so small.
Honestly,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't use it. I don't really, I mean, I don't leverage it. I don't use it. It's not something that I'm very comfortable with. I think they made a note in the keynote. We're talking about, if you are a bash script person or like a power, there's like syntax, like for like copy,
Linux,
command,
or there's Windows,
but there's Linux and Windows, and they're using both command prompts for both. So if you're a Linux person and there's commands that you want to use there, both the commands for Windows and Linux work together in this experience, which I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Usually Microsoft makes you use whatever the heck they're using at the time, but the fact that Linux is there as well, and you can start scripting things with like Linux-like commands. Okay,
like
interesting.
I see every Azure developer tools like, this is our own kind of language, our own syntax. Get used to it.
Yes. Here's an ARM template. Here's a bicep template. Here's this, this is the way we do things. Like, why is that easier? Like, make it easier. So I agree with you, Tommy. Command line interface is interesting. I think it will be interesting. We will definitely have to talk about it more after we play with it a bit more. And I think I'm still waiting for what are the use cases? What is the actual practical use case around the CLI? When should I use it? What's the hook here for me? And I'm not sure I see it yet. Great. Thankful it exists. Apparently someone was asking for it. Fine. How do I use it? Not sure yet. No, the only thing I can maybe make a note here, Tommy, is if the command line interface can somehow be triggered using like an API or something where I could use an API to copy a script into a lakehouse and then run said script using an API call, that I think I could really get behind. So think about the ability to like sequence or turn on or do CI/CD or DevOps essentially. If there's something DevOps related around the command line that I could use, then I think I could start seeing the effectiveness here. That's maybe one of the use cases I potentially could get behind because I don't see a lot of good tooling right now for CI/CD stuff. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. There's a few CI/CD enhancements actually. Speaking of which,
that's also true too.
Yeah. So
this is another one I want. You go ahead, Tommy. Say it.
So no, it's the idea of variable libraries, which very intriguing kind of thing. I know something like it's available on GitHub is like, that's nice kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. But did you hear anything else from the CI/CD stuff or in detail?
I mean, that is the main thing that came out from CI/CD. More and more of the workloads are going to be using this variable library. So think of a variable library as this, right? It's a single file that describes all of your environments. So as you move from dev to test to production, right, there's notebooks that need to repoint to a new lakehouse. There's new lakehouses with new GUIDs in each environment. There's semantic models that need to repoint to things. There's pipelines that need to repoint to different lakehouses and such things. What the variable library does is it allows you to build all those parameters in mass. I mean, you're not going to have like 3 or 4. You're going to have like 10 or 15 of these things, like in a single variable set. The variable library allows you to then pick which environment you're in. And I think this is like an ease of use for like a deployment pipeline, right? I have a deployment pipeline. I need to set up all these variables. I need to make a pipeline, a notebook, a lakehouse, a semantic model, and all of those things need to be programmed together. And that way they can move as one unit across all the environments. This is the way to do that. This is what Microsoft is building. I think it handles a good majority of use cases around CI/CD, but what it does not handle is it does not handle the workspace fabric SKU designation. It does not handle the users of that security group that live inside that workspace. It does not attach the security groups. This is just variable set. This is all stuff for moving the infrastructure. There's no data processing in this. So yes, I do think this works well, but the variable set does not have a pre-script action and a post-script action that let you do additional code manipulation before you get things into different places. So as one who actually deploys software using Azure, you need some sort of, call it a runner, computer, whatever. You need something that executes code that you can manipulate data or the definition, the schema, before it gets deployed. And then you need post-deployment actions to load the data, set some security groups, whatever the things are. Like there needs to be more automation around the whole surface area of what Power BI is. And I think this is a good starting point. This is a very good CI/CD type pattern for business users who are coming in from Power BI. But I think there's more on the table that needs to be built here. Okay. But it's a good first step on this.
I like first steps, at least we're getting there. Mike, I don't know if this is the bigger thing, because this is another code thing. So I want to touch it briefly because we're already at 50 minutes. But one thing I'm excited to see, I'm excited about the potential of what it can be is the user data functions. Did you see that?
This one, I'm not, a couple things here, Tommy.
All right.
Copilot at an F2, and then the ability to write user data functions. There's two data functions. There's user data functions and there's user defined functions. Two things that came out. Which one are you talking about? Because I get confused.
So I was talking about the kind of like almost like the app platform for.
Okay. So
data. Yeah.
Let me just clarify.
Let
me just clarify what's going on here. Okay. There's two UDFs. Someone changed the name slightly. So there's a user data function, which I believe you're describing, Tommy, it's an Azure function brought to Fabric, and it's a software as a service functions. It's just write Python code, deploy the function, and then run it. So Mim was on, I think it was Mim was on X talking about, they said something along the lines of like, don't argue with me. Azure user data functions are the cheapest way to get data to your lakehouse. It's just cheap and fast and works really well. It's literally running the Python code and writing data directly. So make an API call, go get the data, save the data down to the lakehouse. Done. End of story. And I would agree with them. It's the lowest. It's very heavy code, but it is the most efficient way to do it. Everyone's going to be intimidated with it. However, if you can bring Copilot to user data functions, I can just ask it, hey, write me a function that talks to this API. Here's how you secure it. And I want you to send the data to this file's location here. It should just and write the whole function for you. And that's useful. Like that is a low barrier to entry. It kind of brings me back to the days of like VBA, like record this macro, right? I'm going to click on a bunch of things in Excel. It's going to record all the steps. And now I have code that I can go use to go execute on. So that I'm very excited about. So I would agree with you, Tommy. I'm extremely excited about user data functions. There's another one called user defined functions, I think.
Right.
And that's where you define a function inside DAX. So you can actually have a DAX defined function.
Yes.
That was also announced.
Jeez. Too many user defined.
I'm so lost on everything. I'm not sure. There's so many things that are happening. That one people were talking about. So Marco Russo actually wrote out a really good article around the two functions that were being released. And he, in the article, said a lot of people are using SVG files inside DAX measures. So what you can do now is if you can now use a user defined function in DAX that will keep all of the SVG code for you. And then if you want to do like fancy spark lines, you want to draw your own thing, if you want to draw something as an SVG and have it land on the core visuals that are a Power BI, you can now do so. So I think that's also something very useful. One of the things that's missing in the user-defined functions, the DAX functions, is a library. Where's the library of these things? There needs to be a gallery of user-defined functions that you can then go add to any semantic model wherever you want. Like, to me, that's an experience that needs to exist somewhere, and we don't really have that yet. So I'm actually looking at Power Designer to see if that's something I can add there, like a library, a gallery of like user-defined function things, in addition to like report templates, user-defined functions. That would make sense to put it there, so we could have a number of like sample pieces of code there that people could just go use and go edit or copy into their reports or projects. So that seems to me to be very interesting. So again, it's a useful helper adder of things as well. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, I honestly like. It's still going to be in preview for a while. I don't think they had a date.
It will be
being announced. So this is going to be, this is going to be part, honestly, I think for a lot of people, once they start getting started with everything, it's just like, you do need everything in a shared way. So, all right. So I don't want to blow through everything too quickly, but as I'm going through all of the major announcements here, can we give some love to Power BI? It's all the way at the bottom. I get it. Not a huge, a lot of data engineering, so to speak. I think the only major announcement was just a Copilot experience and AI functions, like notebook wise.
There's a lot of enhancements, I think, going on, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, user defined functions. One thing I'll just kind of call it that's like an unknown, not an unknown. There's one feature here that I do want to call it that I think is useful. Tags. Tags is now GA, so that was very useful there. Tommy, I don't know if you caught my text. Did you see on April 1st that there was an announcement that was made? They announced that Shape Maps is now GA.
Really?
Did you see that? Did you
that
see
is
it?
probably the bigger things. Yeah, that's
No.
one of the more major announcements.
That was an April Fool's joke that I put out on April 1st. So Shape Map, sorry for those who follow me on Twitter, I tweeted out on all the social media. I'm like, oh, Shape Map is now GA, and everyone's like, yay, finally here. Good for graphics and visualization. I was like, I don't think you guys know what day I posted this on. So that was totally an April Fool's joke. Sorry, Shape Map is not GA yet. It's still waiting to get GA.
I'm glad you didn't choose to do the Spanish model one, because I would have had a little more backlash. But gosh.
Well, I would say this, Tommy, like there's a lot of like enhancements, right? So they're talking about data flows Gen 2. They're talking about incremental refreshes now going GA. I got to be honest, data flows Gen 2, you're dead to me. You're too expensive. I don't even want to use incremental refresh. I can't make the move. You've made it too pricey and too expensive. It's not useful to me. So I'm going to go do notebooks. I'm going to go use Copilot to go lift my data flow Gen 2 away from that experience and use something else. Database mirroring has got some enhancements. Apache Airflow Jobs has got enhancements. Copy Job is now GA, which is very good. Very happy about that one. There's orchestration improvements. So Dataflow Gen 2 now gets CI/CD parameterization. So if you are using Dataflow Gen 2, you can now parameterize things and use it in the deployment pipelines, which is very much needed. And then there's just various other data factory enhancements as well. So I think there's a pretty solid data engineering. One of the other features that there's just so many announcements here. I have to call out this one, Tommy. Auto scale billing for Spark. It's the feature's totally named wrong. It's not auto scale billing for Spark. It's pay as you go for Spark. That is going to be huge. So some people, so Tommy, your example here, right? You've got a couple notebooks running. You've got your F2 that's doing its job, right? It's doing some things, right? This auto scale billing for Spark allows you to decouple the amount of CUs that you use in Spark away from the F2 subscription. So you can have an F2 subscription that allows you to have access to all the Fabric things, but then you seriously pay for what you use. The feature should be pay as you go Spark. That's the feature. It should be renamed. It's the wrong name here. It's very,
I like that better.
Yeah, it's pay as you go Spark. I mean, it's literally as you use more Spark, you pay only what you use for it. This is the model, like what Microsoft is doing with this, pay-as-you-go modeling. It's literally mirroring what Databricks was already been doing for years now, and now we have an entirely Spark pay-as-you-go. Now, to be fair, Azure had this whole pay-as-you-go Spark thing already. It was already there. That we just didn't get access to it inside Fabric. So, I mean, maybe Microsoft had it just as long because it was inside Azure, and we didn't have it in Fabric. So, to me, that one's a huge win. And then I'm really interested to see what this AI functions can do. So AI functions in the data engineering space looks very interesting to me. It's in notebooks. You can easily use them. One line of code and you can start using AI functions. So I'm really interested to see what the AI functions are going to do. Anyways.
That was the other one that I thought, I'm like, that caught my eye as well. So
I will note, Tommy, on this link here for the main blog here, you do see Power BI tips on the main page. So under the partner ISV integrations, the workload development kit has been released. It's GA. The workload development kit is GA. It's still very rough around the edges. So, if you want to build a workload, hit me up. Call me in my company because we'll help you figure it out because it's not quite smooth yet. But they have a lot of companies that are out there, but we are to availability. Now, I don't know when I look at the workloads that are out there today. Let me see here. I just double check. Prophecy, Power BI Designer, Power Designer, and Osmosis. There's only 3 companies that have gone GA on workloads. So I'm one of the 3 companies. Osmosis, Prophecy, and Power BI Tips have all gone GA on workloads. And there's other workloads coming from like Clued-In, Neo4j, Lumel. But most of these workloads are data engineering workloads. Most of them are not Power BI related. And I'm one of the few. I think Lumel is the only other one that's actually building Power BI related features. So it'll be interesting to see where these workloads go and if people actually start adopting them. yeah. Anyways, any other quick things you want to hit here before we wrap? I guess.
They did introduce a new style to tables in Power BI, so their tables are still getting a little love too. They're coming out like they're still working on tables, visuals, and the cards that are a big thing. Want to give that a little love, and the exploration is going to get an AI feature as well. So, man, Mike, there, I don't know if I've seen this many announcements at really what wasn't usually is reserved for a major Microsoft conference. So I think that's the biggest thing is this was just Fabric, and they treated this as their Super Bowl, and I love that. So
it's good. I mean, and you could tell they were kind of holding back features the last couple of months just to get into this. So one, it was a great Fabric conference. We had 6,500 people. They filled an entire arena of people in a stadium. There was just tons of people there, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, great announcements. I had a blast. I thought it was the event was very well run. It was very busy. There was a lot of people moving around. If you ask people about how Power Hour went, it was absurd. I didn't even go to it because I couldn't even get in the door. There was so many people packed out for it. Oh yeah, they needed a much bigger room for Power Hour. It was not nearly big enough. So, really big event. And if you haven't been to a Fabric conference and you haven't been to a Power Hour event, they literally need to do like the conference, and they need like a second venue or a second like announcement of like a Power Hour thing. What they've done is they've realized that Power Hour can't be on top of any other sessions, because then no one will go to the other sessions and you'll only have everyone going to Power Hour. So what they did is they did like an after hours Power Hour session where it's basically the Microsoft product team having fun. I think they did like a family feud type thing with the leadership, which was kind of fun as well. Yeah, that went off really well. I think that was well received in the Power Hour, having the most popular features or some questions that the product team had to guess on, like, what is the most needed feature inside Fabric? Top 10 answers kind of thing. And that was kind of fun. So that was interesting as well. But anyways, it was a great conference. Super enjoyed it. There's probably going to be many more discussions, Tommy, we're going to have to dive into. Dude. I want to start playing with AI things and figuring out what that looks like and how we can start incorporating that with our Fabric environments. So, all right, we are at time. Thank you, Tommy, for bearing with us here. Sorry we started a little late today. We're a little bit over on time. We hope you enjoyed the episode. You still get a full long hour of Tommy and Mike rambling. With that, we'll just say thank you all very much. We really appreciate your time. We know it's extremely valuable. If you did go to Fabric Conference, I hope you said hi. If not, maybe I'll see you next year. That being said, if you like this podcast, if you like what we're doing here, if you like the conversations that we're having here, we'd really highly recommend, please, please, please let other people know you like what we're talking about. You like what the conversation is. And we're not trying to do just standard interviews like every other podcast seems to be doing nowadays. We're trying to have like real topics, real conversation around what is Fabric and how do we use it in our organization. That being said, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. And we do this for free. Do you have a question, idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode? Head over to PowerBI.tips/podcast, leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all of Power BI Tips social media channels.
Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.